Welcome to the November 30th meeting of the Legislative Affairs Committee. I now call this meeting to order. Please be advised that FATV is conducting an audio and video recording of this meeting for public broadcast. I ask that anyone else in the audience who is recording this meeting please identify themselves for the record now by standing and stating your name and city of residence. Seeing none, at this time I ask that all electronic devices be placed into silent mode. Members present this evening, Councillors Cruz, Van Hazinga, and Kuchar, as well as myself, the chair, Anthony Zarella. And at this time, I know we have Councillor Fleming zoomed in. Was it your intention, Councillor, to make a public comment or simply to speak when your item comes up?
Speak when my item comes up.
All right, thank you very much. In that case, we have no remote public comment. Anyone in the audience wishing to speak may approach the center podium, identify yourself by name and city of residence and the agenda item on which you wish to speak, and you may speak for not more than 2 minutes.
Jacqueline Wetchey, Fitchburg resident, 97-23, 219-23, 271-23. There is a trend in Fitchburg to gut ethics laws and allow conflicts of interest based on the faulty assumption that we cannot find people to serve in government otherwise. Positions are not widely advertised. The city's board and commission application form is years out of date. I have been trying to get it fixed with not much success. The city does not consistently post current or upcoming openings on its website. It does not utilize social media to list vacancies. Instead, it relies on the same old clique, rotating people through various positions. Numerous individuals serve on multiple boards and commissions at the same time. Certain professions like attorneys are overrepresented. Board after board and commission after commission has zero representation of the working class, zero representation of conservatives, zero representation of younger people, and zero representation of persons of color. Emails I obtained show that the members of one commission were all handpicked by an out-of-town attorney. We have people serving who don't live in Fitchburg, in at least one case don't even live in the state. They impose onerous, costly regulations on us because they themselves have incomes that are not typical for our city, so the burdens they lay on are no big deal to them. Fitchburg accordingly has a reputation for being hostile to business, and the promise to change that is one reason our mayor-elect won by a landslide. Instead of using a lame duck session to cement in the current clique, we should be looking to draw in new people. Multiple well-qualified individuals have applied to boards and commissions only to not even receive the courtesy of a response.
There are no appointments on the agenda. If you wish to speak to the specific agenda items, go ahead.
Let's open up our government to everyone instead of making exceptions to allow people to serve multiple roles at once.
Any further public comment at this time? Seeing none, we will proceed to our agenda. First item on the agenda, a petition. Okay, then. I'll let it go this once. Petition to review the attached disclosure for municipal employees pursuant to General Laws, Chapter 268A, Section 20A and B, to approve the same. Mr. Solicitor, I believe, or was this your petition, I believe? No, this was yours? Go right ahead.
So you're familiar with purchasing the corner of John Fitch Highway and Lunenburg Street. The reason why that this came to the city's attention as it's available is that it was been listed for sale by our local realtor, Rakili, who also is the chair of our wastewater commission. I had the good opportunity to give him a call and work out an arrangement with the gentleman, and we identified this conflict of interest. So prior to closing on the transaction, we figured we should file the ethics disclosure, put it to City Council for a vote consistent with the statute, and allow the gentleman to continue to proceed representing the sellers in the transaction. Any questions you have?
Councillor Van Hazinga?
Just a couple points of clarification that the city's decision to purchase the property did not come from Mr. Healy's reaching out to the city or anything like that. Is that correct?
Exactly. In fact, one of the persuasive points was a letter from you, Councillor,
Yep.
where you wrote to the mayor's office indicating its availability, and there was nothing in that letter that would have given us any indication it was being listed by the
And
gentleman.
he had actually, I believe, when at the time the city expressed interest, had come to an agreement with a different buyer for the property.
They were in possession of a very favorable offer.
Yes,
I don't think they had come to the point of an agreement at that time.
So Mr. Healy's role in the city didn't play any role in the city acquiring the property. This came from, parallel circumstances.
Certainly. And I would add, while he was in possession of a favorable offer, which is his responsibility as a realtor for his client, it would seem to be, in my perspective, somewhat unjust to then frustrate his opportunity to fulfill his expectation of his contract and the representation of his client.
And the city's acquisition of the property, is it anything related to the water or wastewater enterprise funds?
Not that I'm aware of. There may or may not be future wastewater or water infrastructure improvements in that area, but I'm not aware that the purchase is happening for that. In fact, what I am aware of is that the purchase is happening consistent with the DOT's oversight, suggesting improvements to that intersection.
All right, great.
Very good question.
Just want to be clear that there is really no conflict here. It's just a coincidence that they happen to be connected.
Thank you for those questions.
All right, thank you.
Any further questions?
Motion to approve?
Second.
All right, I have a motion and second to approve. If there is no objection, we'll take this by unanimous consent. Seeing none, it is approved. We have next 16123, a petition by Councillor Boschman, who is not with us this evening, to stipulate that if a satellite dish is coming into the city of Fitchburg, the company needs to obtain written approval from the property owner of said property. If the subscriber leaves and no other residents are utilizing the satellite dish, the company must come and remove the dish from existing property. As Councillor Boschman is not here, we could hold this. My inclination, which I had hoped to communicate to him at this time, would be to give it leave to withdraw, as the requirements that he is seeking are largely already in place through general basic legal principles. And the enforcement of those legal principles is not really within the purview of the city. Councillor Krucher.
Well, being a former satellite dish owner, you already needed to get written approval from the property owner if they were going to install it. And, the subscriber, the company already does come when you move to take the dish with you. So you're absolutely right. I motion we give it leave to withdraw.
Any second on the motion?
I'll second it.
Any comments on the motion?
I wouldn't mind giving Councillor Boschman the opportunity to come and talk about it if he wants to do that, and we wanted to hold the petition until next time.
All right, understandable. I think we have the motion before us. Personally, I'm okay with giving it leave to withdraw, because leave to withdraw is without prejudice to refiling. So if in fact he finds the explanation unsatisfactory, he is then free to refile his petition. But I would agree he should have full opportunity to consider these facts and make his decision accordingly. I would be willing to personally reach out to him.
I'll withdraw my motion if you guys want to hold it for him to be here.
Make a motion we hold.
All right, I withdraw my motion to give it leave to withdraw. I second the motion to hold it to allow Councillor Boschman time to explain himself to us.
It appears we have unanimous consent for a hold, so it will be held. Next, we have Liz Murphy, Economic Director, to designate the FRA as special municipal employees pursuant to General Laws, Chapter 268A, Section 20D.
Good evening. Thank you, Chair Zarella and City Council, for letting me speak on this tonight. This is coming up because we have a board member at the FRA who wasn't a member and then was hired by my department. So then, just to be on the safe side and ensure that we don't have conflict here, I was hoping we could designate the FRA as special municipal employees. And in this case, I think it's a really good idea to have someone from community development on the board of the FRA, just to ensure that we continue to be good partners with each other and work together. We both have similar missions.
It does seem to me certainly more synergistic than conflicting. Questions or comments from council? Councilor Cruz?
Yeah, Director Murphy, how often do you anticipate the board member having to recuse themselves because of the new position in the Community Development Department?
That has yet to come up. I'm not sure that. I'm not sure when they would have. If there was, I suppose, if there was some vote where community development was going to get a benefit. Specifically, she might need to recuse herself from a vote with the FRA, but that hasn't happened yet. And I will note that this is a person of color on this board. Not that that should have any impact on your decision.
No, I appreciate you correcting statements made earlier. Thank you. Does anyone else have any questions? Motion to approve.
Second?
I have a motion and second. If there is no objection, it is unanimously approved. While we've got you up here, I will skip my own petition if no one objects, and that way we can get this all done in one. 27123, Liz Murphy, to establish, order, and designate members of the planning board as special municipal employees.
Yes. This is a similar situation where we had an existing planning board member. They were hired by the senior center. They're now working at the senior center. They have been dedicated as far as working with the planning board, and as you may know, planning board meetings are pretty intense. They take a long time. There's a lot of work to be done both at the meeting and before and after those meetings. So we would love to be able to retain her on the planning board if we can have this motion passed.
All right, and perhaps not quite as synergistic, but I can't think of a scenario where there would be any actual rather than technical conflict, because the senior center does not build private property, acquire private property, do anything really with private property. Councillor Van Hazinga?
I just had a question for the city solicitor. We've done a number of these special municipal employee determinations. I thought we already did the planning board. Am I mistaken?
I think so, sir. I don't have the list in front of me, but I don't think it's on the list of the...
Okay.
I might be able to look it up, but I won't be able to do it in 30 seconds, so I'd be happy to
If
look
I
it up.
may.
And that's fine. And I thought we did it. I could be mixing it up with something else, but regardless,
Zoning, I know we did zoning.
it was, okay, maybe the zoning board of appeals I'm thinking of.
I
Board of
did
Health,
check
too, I
with the
believe,
city
right?
clerk to find out if this was already designated. It wasn't on the list.
Okay, it must have been ZBA. I'm not opposed to it. I think I can't think of any overlap between the senior center and planning decisions. And I think it is very important to have dedicated, qualified people who are willing to put in the work to be on the planning board. I did it for a decade, and it's a lot of work.
It is a lot of work.
It's a commitment.
I'd just also like to clarify, because I inadvertently implied something that wasn't true. This is a designation for anyone who is now or in the future on the planning board, not just for this individual. So there could, in theory, be a more direct conflict, but in that case, the member would be obligated to recuse themselves anyway, even as a special municipal employee. So that said, any further questions?
Move to approve?
Second.
I have a motion and second. If there is no objection, it is unanimously approved. While we're on this subject, I suppose we can go back to Solicitor Terry's other item, the other disclosure. Oh, no, this is the one that we discussed. Was this listed twice? We have 25323 was a disclosure regarding the chairman of Water and Wastewater. And then this, I didn't print out the whole packet.
Yes, that should be listed.
That's the same, okay.
Oh,
If it isn't, we can always take it up at a future meeting. But if you know of another individual who needed to be designated.
there is another individual, I'd be happy to address that.
Okay, excellent. So in that case, I'd just like to note for the record that the vote that we took at the beginning of the meeting would actually have been for 25323. And we are currently going to address 09723. Does anyone have any objection to that hiccup? All right, Mr. Solicitor?
I don't remember the specific individual's name, but there's a gentleman that we have that is working on the library, a building committee.
Yes, I recall in the
And this
packet.
was a petition that was filed, I want to say earlier this year, like very early this year. And I appreciate us having an opportunity to take it up now. The gentleman is dedicated to the library project. He also was, from time to time, his company bids on contracts for the city. I'd be happy to supply you with the actual gentleman's name. I don't have it, and I just took a quick look for that.
Excellent.
It's Mr. Hobart.
Scott Hobart.
Elite Construction, the gentleman's name? Sorry?
Yes, I remember. He said he had a minority stake in the company.
And he bids on projects. Well, I should say that the company bids on projects. So we thought that it would be appropriate that we at least disclose that, and that the city council has an opportunity to review that conflict and pass on that conflict.
And for clarification, he is not involved in the bid process.
You know what?
Personally.
Not that I'm aware of. I am aware that he's involved in the on the board of the library project.
And the board itself cannot, accept bids and enter into contracts without
done through-
passing it through the
Procurement department.
procurement department. Yes, and then ultimately, I believe it would come to the council, correct?
The contracting for the council would only be involved in the appropriation of those funds.
Gotcha.
Contracting the specific and executing those individual contracts would be done through purchasing department.
But at any rate, the library building commission would not have any authority independent of the city
They
administration.
may provide advisory and counsel to the purchasing department on accepting bids.
Right.
Other than that, I don't think they're not accepting bids, they're not signing contracts.
And is it, would I be correct in understanding that this individual would intend to recuse himself from any such votes
Correct.
on the board,
Yes.
on the commission?
But nonetheless, he's still on the board.
Of course, of course. No, the disclosure is undoubtedly appropriate. I'm just trying to clarify both for myself and for any members of the public that there would not be a case where he would be voting to approve a contract for his own company or voting to deny a contract for a rival company.
That's correct. And, yes, correct.
All right, any questions from councilors?
I just
Councilor Van Hazen?
would want to state that on committees like the library building committee or other projects, capital projects, it is immensely valuable to have someone with construction experience on the committee to offer insight that just generally the layman like you or me just don't know. So I think there is great value if he's willing to serve, and if we can be careful to that he recuses himself when issues come up where there could be a conflict. I think it's okay.
I would concur. Any further questions or comments?
So the individual is on the library building committee, and his company has placed a bid to renovate the new library.
That is my
And his company's
understanding.
placed a bid with the library project, yes, sir. The temporary library project.
The temporary library.
Yes, not the rebuild of the full library. The retrofitting of the Boulder Drive location.
And again, I would add, I directed the individual to file this, so it's not even my petition, just in his absence, I'm just explaining what I understand to be the facts. It's in your discretion.
This one I would like some more. I would like the individual to come before us. I would like to make a motion to hold this for now.
I second
This is
that.
very much,
All right.
they're very, very involved and
sense.
entwined with each other, and I believe that individual should come before us before we make any assessments.
That makes perfect sense.
I agree with Counselor Cruz. We'd like to discuss this with the individual who may have the conflict of interest and, you know, want to delve a little bit further into this. So, yeah, I second his motion to hold.
All right, I have a motion and second. Any objections? All right, it will be held. Now we will return to 2023. This is my own petition to accept Mass General Law, Chapter 41, Section 19H as a local option. Very simply, 19G stipulates that a clerk of a city or town who also serves as a member of its Board of Registrars of Voters receives $50 per 1,000 registered voters or major fraction thereof, which generally would mean anything above 500. And it caps out at $1,500. If we adopt Section H, all it changes is that it caps out at $2,000. We are not at the cap at all yet. This would simply be to ensure that the large amount of work that goes into preparing and managing elections is compensated to the degree that it is permitted by this local option. Questions?
So right now, the cap is 500?
1,500.
1,500.
Right, so if we had 15,000 registered voters, which unfortunately we don't.
Yeah, we don't.
Then our clerk, Joanna Bellata, would be receiving an annual stipend, essentially, of $1,500. As it stands, I'm not actually certain how many registered voters we have.
We've got about,
30,000.
yeah,
Registered voters, not
No,
eligible
the
voters.
cap is, it's $50 per 1,000.
Oh, yes, thank you. No, you're correct. If we had 30,000, my math is not
We
my
have
strong suit.
roughly 26.
Yeah,
thereabouts.
so at the moment, she's receiving somewhere on the order of 1,300 or so. 1,200, 1,300, somewhere in that neighborhood. Again, my math is not terrific, but it's a small amount. If we were to get an additional 4,000 or so registered voters, she'd hit the cap. If we were to get 10,000 additional registered voters, as it stands now, that number wouldn't increase from the 1,500. If we adopt this local option statute, then it would go up to 2,000 as a total
so
cap.
according, it says here we've got about almost 26,000 registered voters.
So $50 per 1,000.
Okay. But
So,
just-
yeah, 1,300.
just
She's
so-
getting
A little
1,300.
under 26,000 is what we have registered voters, the last. Okay.
Yes, so this year she would have received $1,300 as a stipend for her service on the Board of Registrars. And I will say, not that it probably needs to be said, but I was privy to a lot of the preparatory activity that took place for our election. It is extensive. It is far greater than just running the clerk's office. Counselor?
Just, so would approving this change how much it doesn't sound like it's
not at
going
all.
to change anything.
Nope, she would receive an immediate increase of $0.00. This would simply put it in place that the cap is higher for future purposes.
I mean, so it doesn't matter one way or the other.
For this year, no, it doesn't.
Do you really expect to get 10,000 new voters in here within the next?
Not necessarily, but I don't see any downside. Yeah, 4,000. If we get 4,000 or more, then we're over cap. I would hope to. I know it may or may not be realistic, but I also don't see any downside to adopting this, given that the maximum differential is $500 a year.
Yeah, okay.
and it is for a very hard-working member of the city government.
Motion to approve.
Second?
As a recap, like right now the limit's 1,500. They receive 1,300. We're trying to bring it up to 2,000.
Yes.
If we even have a repeat of this past election, we would have to significantly increase our number of people who voted to see her get that. Or
Registered voters,
Registered
yes.
voters, okay.
Our registered voters would have to increase by more than 4,000 for there to be any increase. In fact, I think if you're saying it's just under 26,000 right now, there would have to be an increase of nearly 5,000 for her to receive an additional $50. For her to receive the full additional $500, we would need to see an increase of, this is where my math is going to fail me again, 14,000 registered voters. So,
Motion and second, so.
It's on the motion. I will say our clerk works exceptionally hard outside of the normal course of business hours, putting on these elections, and I think the compensation, if this is to compensate that, is woefully inadequate to begin with. So I have no problem setting the table that as our city grows and we have more registered voters, that our compensation increases.
Yeah, the city clerk does a lot for the elections, and just consider, I mean, it's not just the local election. She does the presidential election. She does the state elections. So, what's that?
Primaries.
The primaries. So, I mean, and in addition, it doesn't move the needle either way unless we get a whole influx of new voters in here, which I think is pie in the sky, a hope I would like to see. But I just don't see it happening. So, I mean, if it doesn't affect the monetary value as it stands right now, I don't see a problem doing this.
all right. I have a motion and second. If there is no objection, passes unanimously. Lastly, and I'm sorry that we've held you till last, Councillor, we have Councillor Fleming on behalf of Ward 5 residents to relocate the election polling site either back to Sima Park or any other suitable location where traffic is not so dense. Councillor
Thank
Fleming?
you, President. Thank you. Yeah, this was before us about 6 years ago. Actually, my first term as a city councilor, and it was at Sima Park. And the issue there was that a few people, I'm going to say maybe 5% of the registered voters in our ward did not have a vehicle to get to Sima Park. Just observing this year's election, it was an absolute mess. With the increase in traffic downtown, with the new restaurants and all the new business that are down there, we have an increase in traffic. And what I observed was pretty scary. We had candidates holding signs on the sidewalks, which was fine. But what it was doing was hindering pedestrian flow. People didn't have to maneuver around the people that were holding signs because the people holding the signs had, chairs and coolers or whatever, so that because they planted themselves there for days. When the traffic, during the heavy traffic periods, when cars would stop, people that were holding these signs and knew someone in the car would go out and speak to them in the traffic. So when the lights changed and it was time to proceed, it was holding up traffic. So we were actually distracting the drivers from standing there. What I also saw was parking issues because people were parking just anywhere. There was suitable parking in the back where you were to walk in to vote. However, people were parking in areas that were not part of the church. I was watching the handicap, people with handicaps walking in, and having myself been in a wheelchair and had to use crutches. I observed that a little bit more closely than I normally would have. And there was still some challenges. There were bumpiness, not smooth areas for these people to access the building. They did it, but it was with some trouble. We have a couple of new units coming into that area. We have one that's going to be on the corner of Day and Main, and another one on North Street, which is going to increase congestion down there. And I think this is probably a good time to think of another suitable polling location before the next election. For those people that do not have a car, we have early voting. And if they have to walk, they can walk to City Hall, which is in the vicinity of that area where the people would be walking. We also have mail-in voting. I believe that with the new mayor-elect coming in, I know that she will make it a priority to make sure that when elections happen, that there will be transportation to get them to the new polling site. So it was really disturbing to watch this year's election and just the cluster down there and no organization. And I really think it's time, before we have a tragedy, to think of a new place to vote for Ward 5, both A and B. Thank you.
Thank you. Questions, comments from council? Councilor Van Hazen.
I don't think the Rollstone Church is a perfect polling location. I think there are problems associated with it, especially the access with the Snow Street being one way towards Main Street. It does make some aspects difficult. I am open to looking at different polling locations. I do have significant concerns of the use of Simon Park, though, because it is in a much more remote section of the city and the ward, and it's much farther from the majority of voters who are in that Ward 5. So hopefully we can find another place. I think also, before we make any decision about this, we should probably have the city clerk weigh in and get her opinion about what the obstacles are, what the requirements are, and what places she or other clerks have looked at to have as a polling location. And I think we really need that counsel before we can make any sort of decision.
Councilor Krucher?
Thank you. I remember when we took this vote in regards to the change. It was probably, I think it was one of the first votes that I did. And I remember having reservations about it in regards to traffic on, basically around Main Street and, pedestrians and parking. And I knew this wasn't going to be the most ideal, but I've also heard from Ward 5 residents how, difficult it is to get there and to, actually get into there and vote. So I don't oppose Councillor Fleming's idea to relocate. I do like Councillor Van Hazinga's idea that maybe some other place other than Simon Park might be appropriate, but I'm always open for Simon Park because that's been a polling location for quite a long time. But we definitely do need to look at other areas. I know Councillor Fleming's ward is both downtown as well as out in the sticks, but I think we could find a happy medium somewhere where people can actually have it more convenient to vote. Also, we vote in Ward 3, we vote in Ward 2. Technically Memorial's in Ward 2. So, we can look to even maybe outside of the Ward 5 for a polling location that might be suitable. I don't like the idea. I don't like going to another person's ward to vote for the election, but it is what it is.
Councilor Fleming, I'm sorry, I can't involve you in the deliberations.
I tried.
Did you have anything to add?
Nothing much. I won't be repetitive, but I do appreciate Councillor Fleming's effort to make it a safer place to vote and more accessible. I think that's important for us to think about. Where is it easy and accessible, and where is it beneficial to the residents of her ward? So I'm looking forward to a little more research and hearing the clerk weigh in as well.
Mm-hmm. And that was my thought as well when I read this. I think it definitely needs to be done. I don't think we can make a decision on it tonight simply because there's too much data to gather. I would want to see all the things that have already been mentioned, as well as the possibility, talk with city officials and see if there's any city building that is in the ward and appropriately located that could be used, because one thing that has been under discussion in light of Memorial, actually, is that it's good to give voters a chance to see what their tax dollars are paying for. What we're putting in a new building, or we're repairing a building, or whatever. Bring them in, let them see, this is what the city is doing. This is how we maintain our buildings and so forth.
If we can't find a city building, I mean, do you think we could maybe see if Fitchburg State would give us
Maybe.
an area?
Potentially.
I mean, it's one day a year, so.
Yeah, the only issue I see with Fitchburg State would just be that for the people who do have to walk, that's up quite a ways in the hills. But it's one of the things we could look into.
Fitchburg State is right next to downtown.
True. I mean, some of their properties are. I guess I'm thinking of the main campus up where we do the, where we used to have the debates and where they have the moot court and whatnot.
The rec center might be a perfect place. The rec center on North Street.
Maybe, yeah.
What about those buildings?
That's a good thought. So yeah, these are all things that we can consider, and I certainly agree. I would like to get the city clerk's weigh in on this, because she is both going to be the one who will have to deal with whatever decision we make, and also the one who is more experienced with running elections than any of us are. But I definitely do see the issues, and I saw even on election day the issues that are coming up with the current location, which I hasten to note are not at all attributable to any lack of cooperation on the part of our hosts, who have been very accommodating. But it does seem that we need a new location. And so I think it seems... I'm sorry, go ahead.
Well, when you're done your comment, I just had something to add.
Oh, I was just going to say, it seems like we have a consensus for holding this, but...
Yeah, I think just to brainstorm, because this is an issue that is also true in Ward 4, that we use the Armory where there is very limited parking in a congested area downtown. So it's not a perfect location either, but if you're looking at sort of what you need in a polling place, is you need an open area where tables and booths can be set up and machines and everything, readily accessible, have parking available. And if you look at what types of properties meet this requirement, it's our school buildings. We do use a portion of Memorial, but that has its own difficulties when school is in session, and that the parking available at the gymnasium where it is very limited. So, I mean, years ago, the schools had half-days or were off on election day, and maybe this is something to consult with the school department and the city clerk and say, you know what, could we bring this back? Could we use school buildings? Could we, schedule that as a professional event? But this is all things to be talked about.
No, that is actually a very good point.
I think the students would love a half day or have the day off.
I think a day off would
you'd
be...
have their vote.
Yeah, and I don't want to speak out of turn or anything, but I will say that this is a conversation I've had with Superintendent Thompson, and I think we may be seeing that going forward. So that is something that I think we can definitely look into. So yeah, I look forward to investigating this. I think it'll take a lot of work, but we've got some time. It probably won't be done in time for the federal primaries in the spring, but could be done in time for the general in the fall. And we'll see what we can do.
Yeah, I think this is something worth investigating further and coming to a good solution. But I do think it's going to take more discussion, so I will make a motion to hold this.
Second.
All right, motion and second to hold. Any objection? All right, it will be held, and that concludes our business for the evening.
Motion to adjourn.
Second.
Motion and second to adjourn. Seeing no objection, we are adjourned.